Hello, this is Maybe We're Just Rambling.
Howdy.
And we are your hosts. I am Rebecca.
And I am Stuart.
This is a podcast that we have thrown together. We don't necessarily know what we are doing, and we are still figuring it out as we go along. So
Hence the name.
If you are a return listener, thank you so much for your continued support and for bearing with us as we work through all of the kinks. And if this is your first time tuning in, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Please bear with us. At some point, I feel like this will become a little bit more natural, but there's a learning curve with everything. So
at some point, we will stop apologizing for messing up.
Yeah, maybe someday. All of that said, though, I do want to wish everyone a belated but very happy Thanksgiving. So today is Friday, so that means yesterday was Thanksgiving Day, and I can only speak for you and I, but I feel like we had a really special, really wonderful day.
It was nice. We went over to my folks a little bit earlier. You were able to make a dish there, spend some good time, minus that small headache that I had for a number of hours trying to do stats homework, but It was great.
That too shall pass. It was really cool. I was able to contribute this year by making a side. That's the first time I've ever done that, and everybody liked it, so that made me really happy. And there was so much good food. There was this incredible banana pudding that somebody made, this really beautiful charcuterie board.
It's really rich scalloped potatoes.
Oh, the scalloped potatoes. I had like the smallest little bit of it, but it was so good. The turkey came out really well. Of course, I didn't eat any of it, but everybody seemed to love it. I left that night not wanting to look at food ever again. I was so full. But those leftovers have been coming in clutch. I almost think the leftovers are as much fun as the actual like feast of the day of.
Yeah, I think turkey's good enough. You should eat it more than once a year.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to. Yeah. I don't have a good way to respond to that because I'm like, oh, sure.
Well, I mean, everybody eats what? Chicken and beef and pork. I mean, you're forgetting about another poultry.
Well, there's all kinds of foods that like people don't really incorporate into their diets as often as they could. Like cranberries are amazing and they're really good for you, but people only eat them like once a year.
Yeah, I like cranberry sauce. I had a can of it the other night.
Well, I was thinking of something a little bit more like homemade, but sure, the canned stuff works too, I guess. We are recording this late once again. I feel like that's just kind of the way it goes. It ends up being the thing that we get to towards the end of our day, but
we've been busy, that's why.
Yes, we have. I feel like we say that every single week, but this week especially it's true, and we have some news that we're very excited to share with you guys because, of course, it pertains to our life as a whole, which more or less makes up the majority of this podcast. So today, and we're going to get into all of the whys and the wherefores and everything else, but today we drove up to a suburb outside of Fort Worth and I bought a truck.
Why'd you buy a truck?
I bought a truck because, to not get too far into it or too like detailed, I value the life that we have, the lifestyle that we are able to lead. At this point, I feel pretty confident saying that this is not just something that we're doing for fun. I think it is very much a part of who we are, and I want to do everything that I can to preserve that. And a big part of it is having a vehicle that is able to get us from point A to point B very comfortably.
Never flinch.
And something that we can have plenty of confidence in. And it made sense for me to be the one to take that step and do that. Because up to now, we've been using Stuart's Ram 1500 to get us from point A to point B. And it's done a pretty good job, but our trailer is heavy and it's a big load for a half-ton truck to pull. There's a reason why there are so many people out there who don't think that half-ton trucks should be used for towing large loads.
And there's a difference between going an hour to the lake or going 8,000 miles around the country.
Exactly. And we learned a lot over the trip that we took this past summer, not the least of which was that if we want to continue doing this, having a vehicle that is a little bit more capable is really, really important. And I have a Tacoma that I've had for 4.5 years. I absolutely love that truck. It's been so good to me. I've taken as good a care of it as I possibly could. done a lot of things to improve the quality of the vehicle. And it's really hard for me not to like anthropomorphize that truck because I love it so much. I mean, I call her Shailene, I named her and everything. But at the end of the day, I value this lifestyle that we have more than I value a vehicle, because vehicles come and go. And so we had a really long conversation about it. And I came to the realization that it makes sense for me to be the one to get rid of my vehicle, because I value this more than I value my truck. And for your truck, I mean, it's your hobby, it's your creative outlet, it's tied into so much of like your personality and your social network and everything. Like, I could never ask you to get rid of your truck. That would just be, I don't know, I just couldn't do it. It would just be wrong. And I can get another truck and like make it incredible. So
it's
that
the
doesn't.
truck that you knew.
Yeah.
Whenever we started dating.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah, in a big way. And there we go, anthropomorphizing something again. I think that's the right word. You know, like giving humanistic traits to something that is inanimate. But anyway, we had a long talk about it, and I decided to make the leap. And initially it was just like, okay, let's put my truck out there. We'll take some really nice pictures of it, and let's just put it out there on like Craigslist and Marketplace, and we'll see if we get any interest. And then we'll go from there. And so we did. Took some nice pictures, and Stuart put together the listing and everything. And we got interest immediately. Like, people were very interested, because right now, I mean, it's very much a seller's market. Like, because used vehicles are pretty much all that there is. There are no, like, if you look at a dealership right now, it's like a ghost town. So we started getting some interest, and it was like, okay, I think this is a good reason for us to start looking, because it actually looks like we could sell Shailene the Tacoma and potentially get something else. So do you want to go ahead and like jump in and kind of talk about like the vehicle that we were potentially looking for, and like why? And
then you want to go through and tell them what we got to?
Oh yeah, I guess we should probably tell you what we got. Yeah, go ahead. You can take the honors.
Okay. So Rebecca is now the proud new owner of a 2005 Chevy 3500 crew cab, long bed, 4x4. It's got an 8-foot bed.
That never has to be made.
So we landed on that truck because if you're going around the country, truthfully, you're gonna want, after you do a trip or two of any length, something really stable and something with power to spare, I guess you could say. And so my truck, I truthfully think I'm a pretty competent driver. But it is a lot to ask a half-ton truck to go 8,000 miles around the country with a 35-foot bumper pull, which is 8,000 plus pounds. So we were looking for a 3/4 ton to a 1-ton truck, and we wanted to kind of stay out of the era whenever the alphabet company started pushing,
making it hard to breathe.
Yeah, making it hard to breathe and pushing for certain things on certain vehicles with wheels. I'm just going to say it like that so we don't get flagged. So we wanted to stay kind of in that era of 2007 or pre that. And we looked at, well, we drove over God's green earth this week.
We really did. It's like you said, if we were being paid to drive, we'd be rich.
Yeah. We drove to East Texas. We drove down towards Houston. We drove up towards Fort Worth. I mean, we probably put 1,000 miles on just this week.
Yeah.
And we looked at an F-350. We looked at an F-250. And we landed on a Chevy 3500. Those Fords that we looked at, gosh, they're such a good platform. But man, if it's got 2 quarts of oil on the bottom side of it,
on the outside,
on the outside, yeah. And if somebody gets inside and it drops 20 droplets, run. Okay. Diesels are expensive to work on, so we wanted something that was already not needing a whole bunch of work. mechanically. So that was with the first Ford. The second one had a pretty bad leak too.
It did.
Had some problems with power steering, power brakes.
Things that could have been fixed.
Things that could be fixed. But today, the truck we looked at just really felt right.
Mm-hmm.
It had low miles.
Mm-hmm.
And being a Duramax of that era, if you're any kind of aficionado with diesels, it had already had some of the fatal flaws happen to it and fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, the truck had $12,000 worth of repairs done in one sitting. So that would not be a good thing to do after you buy it.
No.
So we found a vehicle that had already had some stuff done to it, like all the stuff fixed on it, the fatal flaws fixed. And it seemed right. And we drove it home today.
Mm-hmm. I drove it the majority of the way, and it's crazy because I've really come to realize, like, if you look at vehicles from within like the last 10 to 15 years, really the last like 5 to 10 years, really, the smaller bodied trucks, so like your Tacomas, have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So that delineation between like a mid-sized, would you say like a Ram 1500 is like a mid-sized truck?
No, that's a full size.
So like a full-size truck, and I guess a Tacoma then would be mid-size. Yeah. That delineation is getting narrower and narrower. And so if you put those two trucks side by side, like a mid-size and a full-size, you're thinking, well, there's not really a whole lot of like difference there. So then if you put a full-size truck, and then what's the next step up then? Like a 3/4 ton truck.
Yeah, I mean a full-size 3/4 ton. They
next
start
to
getting
like,
a beefier chassis.
Yeah, that's really
axles, frames.
But if you look at them side by side,
it's everything underneath. I think what you're trying to say is everything underneath is different.
Yeah, but and
outwardly looking, it just, you'd shrug it off and say, oh yeah, it's got the same. I mean, those are the same size doors.
But let me tell you, when you are actually behind the wheel and driving, I mean, I felt like I was in a tank. Like, it just felt so much more like secure and
grounded.
Yeah, very, and like sturdy than my Tacoma ever has. My Tacoma, it's an '09, so it's not quite as big as the newer Tacomas are, but it's a decent sized, like mid-sized truck, and I've never felt like it was too small or anything. But now after driving the Chevy, it's like, holy cow, this thing feels like a tank. And like, we were on the phone and I was trying to get over into a lane, and I was like, are these people gonna let me over? And you were like, you're bigger than them, they're gonna let you over. And that's just like such a new concept.
Not like she was running anybody off the road, but I'm like, they already slowed down because they saw your blinker.
Yeah, so it's very different, and it's a really, really good feeling. I'm a big believer in trusting your gut, and like, I don't care how good something looks. If I don't have a good feeling about it, you're never going to convince me to go with it. And those first two vehicles that we went and looked at, I mean, the first one in particular, it had a really, really bad oil leak. It was going to need a ton of work. It also had something called blow-by, which is basically where you take the coolant cap?
The oil fill cap.
The oil fill cap off, and it's just like,
it's breathing out the fumes, the vapors of...
It's like a white smoke.
Yeah, it's breathing out the fumes of things getting past the piston rings inside the cylinder.
And it's bad news, because that means that there's a whole bunch of work that is going to need to be done, and of course it's expensive. So that was an automatic no. And then that other Ford that we went and looked at, I mean, it was honestly, it was nice. I mean, it was a Laramie, and it had like the leather interior, and it wasn't dogged real bad. Like, the guy had tried to take decent care of it, but it still was going to need, I think we had said, probably like $2,000 worth of work, and that's probably being conservative. And so we made an offer based on that knowledge, and he wasn't willing to entertain it.
He didn't want to sell it that bad.
Yeah.
You didn't want to buy it that bad.
And so we walked.
And I've gotten 4 messages and 2 phone calls later of, I'll take your offer.
Mm-hmm.
But we were going to follow up with what we were already in North Texas for today.
Yeah, and I felt good about that immediately. Even before we went up there to see it, like, I was still cautious, and I was like going to wait and see how I felt about it once I actually sat in the truck and like looked at it and everything. But just knowing that he had done so much work to improve the truck. I mean, once
to resurrect the truck, you mean?
really, yeah, to like fix all of the issues that it had. I mean, it, it's an older vehicle, so there of course are going to be things over time that have to be replaced. Like that's just a fact of life. It doesn't bother me whatsoever, but just knowing that those really big issues have already been dealt with is such a huge peace of mind. So it was scary to buy it because it's scary anytime you spend any great sum of money. At least it is to me anyway. Like
It should be for everybody.
I like my money and I like not spending it. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But I feel it got us all the way back home from Fort Worth. So I feel really, really good about it. And yeah.
Do you want to take a break? I'm going to get up, stretch my legs, and try and get something to drink real quick.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We will be right back, guys. And we are back. That glass of water, that was a good call.
That's clutch.
I want to kind of talk about, so with this truck, some of the things that we are going to be working on.
It's hard not to talk about it because this is
Right.
really all that's on our mind because it just happened.
Right. So, I mean, I guess if you're not interested in like mechanics or vehicles or anything like that, then this episode's probably going to be pretty boring
It's
to
just
you.
a chapter of our lives.
Exactly. And it's topical. So, I mean, how can we not talk about it? But mechanically, that truck is like in really, really good shape. But it is, you know, a 20 plus year old truck.
No.
Not 20 plus.
No.
I'm bad
It's
at
like
math.
15, 16.
Yeah, 15, almost 20-year-old truck. And so it has some signs of like wear and tear, not near as bad as some of the things that we've seen, but I figure we'll kind of talk about like some of the things that we want to improve on the vehicle.
Well, it's got some boo-boos on the outside. The door handle
On the passenger
on the
side.
front passenger door has been replaced, and I don't know exactly how it got
Yeah, I don't know
messed up.
what happened.
But it doesn't fit right, and the truck is white. And previous owner was more he was more inclined to take care of it mechanically than cosmetically,
which is totally fine. It was a work truck for him, so
it's got white spray paint on it.
Yeah, I walked around the corner whenever we first got there, and I like saw the door, and then I saw the spray paint, and it's pretty obvious because there's a little bit of like spray paint, like a flash overspray on the actual like window glass.
It matches really well. It's
From a
just
distance,
it doesn't have the
look
gloss
bad.
of it. Yeah.
Right. No, and the door, the locking mechanism on it doesn't work. I kind of wonder if maybe it got broken into or something, but either way, it doesn't matter because that's a really easy fix.
Thankfully, all the 2000s era Chevy trucks have the same front passenger door, and it's probably going to be really easy to take care of.
So that won't be any big deal or a big issue. That's probably a more of a priority than anything, just because I like having vehicles that I can lock pretty securely.
Yeah, locks are generally nice when you can lock them.
Yeah, so there's that, but like we said, that's going to be an easy thing to do. We can take a trip to a junkyard at some point and see if they have anything, and then kind of go from there.
It's got another boo-boo on the driver's side back door.
Yeah, the whole truck, in various places, it has some like minor dings and dents because it was used as a work truck. Those don't really bother me too much because of what I'm planning to do with the body in the far distant future. Not really necessarily far distant, but at some point in the future. But there are a couple of dents that are kind of major. Probably like you could put half of your hand into them. I'd say like the blade of your hand.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, not like so we kind of want to get those repaired.
So we've got the front passenger door, got the driver's side rear door, and then the hood has it's not like somebody punched it, but about that size and not that deep. But that's one of the obvious things as well.
And so whenever we were looking at the truck, we took note of all of these things. Another thing is the interior carpet, the like not the upholstery, but like the carpet on the floor. It's pretty worn in a couple of places.
It's clean, but it's worn.
It's been cared for, but it's just, showing its age. And I'm honestly not real worried about that either, because I kind of want to take it out and replace it with like a vinyl or something.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because I think that would be easier with the dogs and cleaning and like everything.
I had my Ford was a vinyl. It was nice.
So it's a lot easier to maintain. And since this is going to be something that we're like traveling in and kind of spending a lot of time in potentially, the easier it is to maintain, the better. And then other than that, the seats, I was impressed how great a shape they were in. We looked at a lot of vehicles where the seats were like kind of blown out in places just from people sliding in and out. I'll probably want to put seat covers over those at some point just to preserve what's there. That's just kind of my personal preference and style. But we took all of that stuff into consideration when we made the guy who was selling it our offer. And we were able to negotiate a very fair deal that I felt really comfortable paying, and he seemed very happy with it as well. So, and
his wife was like
happy about it.
Yeah. Bring home this amount of money.
So it ended up working out really, really, really well. But I think, so if you know anything about Stuart and I and our vehicles, you may have noticed that the like paint texture on the body is a little bit different.
Pause. We're gonna get all these big dents fixed, right?
Right.
You don't have to get it perfect though, right?
No.
Why not?
Because you and I are big fans of covering the entire vehicle in bed liner.
Yeah. Don't worry about the rest of it. We'll just cover it all in bed liner. That's what we do around here.
I was kind of like you encouraged me to do it.
I put the thought in your head.
But I was the trendsetter with doing it first with my Tacoma, because my Tacoma was white, very similarly to this vehicle, and
didn't think about that.
Yeah, and it was doing what Tacomas do and starting to rust and pit. And I looked into how much it would cost to get it completely like redone, repainted, and it was going to be incredibly expensive. And I thought, why would I spend that much money? It's potentially going to rust again later on down the road, when I can do something else that's going to essentially bulletproof the body of the vehicle. And so I reached out to a place that bedlined and asked them, like, hey, would you just do my entire vehicle? I picked out a color that I liked, and they did it. And it has indeed made my truck just about bulletproof. It's been awesome. There's only been one instance where I needed to replace the hood because something really heavy, I think someone backed into me in a parking lot with something in their bed. It actually did like crack the hood and the bed liner. But I got it replaced, no problem, and you wouldn't ever know any different now. And so I did it, and then you did it with your Ram.
Yeah, my truck is black from the factory, and I think they're right when they say you'll only buy one black vehicle. It is incredibly tough to keep clean, and so I was like, you know what? It's already black. Hey, same company that did yours. Just want to do mine? Just slap the black on it. And it's remained bulletproof through it all. I was tired of shopping carts at Home Depot hitting it. Mad.
You had like a lot of carts hit you in very quick succession.
Yeah, no, 3 in 2 months.
Yeah, that's really bad. So it just makes too much sense to me. It's kind of growing in popularity too, depending on where you live in the country. It's something that people do with their vehicles just because it preserves them so well. And so I dollars to donuts would bet that down the line we'll do the same thing to this Chevy, just because it makes too much sense. And then the minor dings and scratches, you won't even see them anymore.
It really absorbs them because of the thickness of the bed liner.
Yeah, so that is kind of the long-term plan in my mind for the body. And if everything goes according to plan, and I have no reason to see why it wouldn't, this is a vehicle that I'm planning on keeping for a really, really long time. We're going to do the preventative maintenance that needs to be done to take care of it. We're going to do what we need to do to preserve it so that it can continue to be a reliable vehicle that does not flinch when we need it to work, which is the entire reason that we got it. And I guess that kind of brings me into another point that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is just like you and I were talking about how we don't think we'll ever be the kind of people that go to a dealer and buy a brand new vehicle and drive it off a lot.
I don't think we'll ever be the kind of people that buy something that doesn't run, like the biggest project in the world.
Right.
We at least want some good bones, but somewhere in the middle is where we'll be.
I have no problem with buying something that is like rock solid underneath and needs a little bit of like cosmetic work or something. I derive a lot of personal satisfaction from doing that kind of thing and improving things and making them better and like turning it into something that I can then use and be proud of. I love that kind of thing. And I've bought one vehicle from a dealer, and it was my Tacoma, and that worked out really, really well. Just because I think it's a Tacoma and they're really good vehicles, but it was not a super positive experience. That dealer was kind of scummy, and I don't think I don't know, I just would never do that again if I had the choice between buying from a dealer versus buying from a private seller. And I would never buy a brand new vehicle just because it seems like such a waste. Like they begin to depreciate the second you buy them off the lot. And I guess it's just my perspective on life and everything, but I'm not a super materialistic person. Like I don't need to have the newest, the best, the brightest, the shiniest, whatever. I can take something and make it my own very easily. And I just can't justify spending that money when there are so many good vehicles out there already.
We already have the type of lifestyle which has afforded us the luxury of, well, we're frugal. And this lifestyle, it's one of maximizing what you have instead of just trying to wipe through it as quickly as you can. And
I like that.
I mean, yeah, I read something that the average millionaire has a 6-year-old vehicle. The whole materialistic thing. I mean, we're not in high school. We don't have. We're not trying to put big rims and this and that and all the crazy stuff on our trucks.
No, and I think just taking care of the things that you have and valuing what you have, that goes such a very long way. And I don't know, it makes me.
Sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, it makes me like nauseous when I see people with these like brand new, whatever it is, like fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. I guess like if that's what makes you happy and you derive value from that and it makes you feel good, then congratulations, and I'm happy for you. But man, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. So that is the big news over here. We didn't necessarily have a huge plan when we sat down to record this podcast, but it didn't really matter anyway, just because this is like all that's been on our mind for the past like few weeks now. Yeah.
Lots of hours looking. Yeah.
Lots of hours gone into planning, gone into researching. It was not a decision that we made lightly or like on the fly. You did a ton of research into like what to look for in these types of vehicles that we were interested in, like issues that they can have. So we knew exactly what to look for and like what red flags to be on the lookout for. So I feel like in that regard, I mean, time will tell, but I feel like all of our diligence paid off and it kind of came to fruition tonight. So of course we have to talk about it. But I guess I have anything else in regards to the truck.
Well, I don't either. We're gonna have to chop this out.
I do want to say I got a lot of positive feedback from last week's episode.
You did?
Quite a bit. I mean, you didn't?
No, I did. I was just like, oh, you did?
Oh, creating conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really appreciate everybody that took the time to listen to us, because that I think was the longest podcast that we've ever recorded.
Yeah, almost an hour and a half.
And of course, it was a pretty controversial topic, and I don't know, I'm a perfectionist in everything, and so of course hindsight's always 20/20 for me, and like looking back on that, I'm like, man, I wish I would have said this way or made this point this way or whatever. But I don't think it ultimately matters. I think my words and your words were received well by the people that heard them, and that's all that you can ask for. So I really appreciate that. And it's a very expansive topic, so
Yeah.
maybe at some point in the future we can talk about other aspects of it as well. But I don't know if I'm in a hurry to like get back into it because that was a little taxing.
We have some very strong opinions. And they're not always exactly what everyone else's is. And that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's all I really have to say about that. I appreciate a lot of the feedback we got. It's cool that you can not see things exactly the same way as somebody else, but still understand them and see the big picture. I mean, I think, where they fit in, where we fit in.
Exactly. I think I had asked you like the day after we posted it or something, if you thought that our differences, you and I, our personal differences, end up being our strengths in this relationship. And I think they do too, because they give us the ability, like we've been forced to, especially me, because I tend to react so much more emotionally to things than you do. It's forced me to learn to have civil discourse with someone who does not share my perspective, and not immediately feel like just because someone doesn't agree with me, I'm being attacked. Because that's usually not what it is. If someone doesn't agree with you, they just don't agree with you, and then that's fine, and they have their own perspective, and usually there's some type of middle ground in there somewhere.
And over the course of the years that we've been together, we've been able to learn each other so much better, and have so much conversation beyond just, I feel, typical conversation, to where we're probably at the point where we can answer about the other one's beliefs just as good, if not better, and reflect that better than me.
Yeah, I think I definitely feel like that's true for you. Like, I've heard you tell people about what I believe and why I believe it, and you've stated it more eloquently than I could have, which I think is really, really cool. And I hope that I would be able to do the same for you. So anyway, that's just a point that I want to throw out there because I've been thinking a lot about that particular episode. It was pretty meaningful for me personally, getting to speak about something that I feel so strongly about, and it's something that I always enjoy talking about with you. So to get to record that was pretty cool.
Man, I've picked your brain so much over the years. And initially, like you said, you took it and you were like, thought I was like trying to fight you for it. And literally, I'm the kind of person that's just going to ask questions all day long. I will exhaust you with questions if I don't understand something. And it's just because I wanted to get to know and like understand it better. I respect how you feel.
Yeah. So anyway, do you want to go ahead and get into our feel good segment?
Sure. Do you want me to read it like it, or do you want to?
Let me read it because I'm the one
You're
that
the one that found it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna read it.
So this is our feel good or funny for the week.
And by the way, if you have a feel good or funny, please send it our way. We would love to read your feel good funny as well. But so this is something that I read. I'm a big fan of Reddit. I find it interesting and entertaining. There's so many different topics. And if you don't know anything about Reddit, it's basically a website with a whole bunch of different forums. And there's forums for every single topic under the sun, like photography, camping, hiking, parenting, relationships, anything and everything. It's really, really interesting. And one of the subreddits, or one of the forums that I follow, is called r/parenting. And I don't have kids, obviously, but I was pretty involved in like the raising of my younger siblings because I'm the oldest in my family. And so I can kind of relate to and understand a lot of the posts that are put in this subreddit.
And the humor of it is...
And the humor, yeah. And it's just very entertaining, and I like it a lot. And this particular post just had me rolling, and I read it out loud to you, and I knew that I wanted to share it on the podcast. So the topic of this post is, why don't children eat the crust on bread? Mystery finally solved. And they write, "As I do each morning, I was making my 3-year-old son his bread and butter toast and was conducting the age-old routine of cutting off the crusts before serving his lordship his buttery banquet when I casually asked, 'Why don't you eat the crusts?' To which he quickly replied, not realizing the gravity and impact his statement would make to parents across the globe, 'I don't like the skin.' I was lost for words, but did momentarily visualize myself collecting the Nobel Peace Prize for solving a 2,000-year-old parenting puzzle. It was so simple. Of course he doesn't like the crusts. As adults, we wouldn't chew through the waxy rind to eat our favorite piece of cheese. None of us are walking down the street trying to gnaw through the leathery protective layer of a watermelon. We're not savages. Children naturally view the crust as some kind of protective layer there to stop the bread going bad, and they're right to a degree. They are just unwilling to accept our trusting word that crusts are edible. And there you have it. One of the greatest riddles of human behavior has now been solved." And I just thought that was so funny and honestly like very true. From like a psychological perspective, even now as an adult, I don't like eating the crust. It's like I can do it and I'll get like to the last corner and then all I have left is crust and there's like nothing left between the pieces and it's like I don't want that. It's dry and like I don't
Your
want
family
that.
doesn't want to eat that.
And I just thought that was so funny.
Does nobody tell kids, too bad, suck it up, you're going to sit there until you eat it?
Well, yeah, but I think you're underestimating how stubborn kids can be.
I've had to sit there and have some questionable meatloaf for breakfast.
Oh, man.
Because I didn't eat it for dinner.
I remember my parents at one point, my brother Eli was a super picky eater and like as a real little toddler. And they made like beanie weenies for dinner the night before, which was like a staple in our family. And he like would not, he like picked out the hot dogs, but he would not eat the beans. And they like were told him, "You're not getting up from this table until you eat the beans." They had read like some parenting book somewhere that said like this is the technique to use to get your kids to eat. And so he sat there, little 3-4-year-old self sat there staring at those beans getting cold, and then finally they're like, "Okay, well, if you're not going to eat them, you're going to eat them for breakfast." And they tried. I remember watching my mom in the kitchen the next day trying to like force feed these beans to Eli, and he would not have it. He was like gagging and being super dramatic. He won that round.
Gosh.
So,
Eli.
I think every single parent out there or anyone who has been heavily invested in like raising a child through all of those different stages, particularly like from toddler to adolescent, there are so many weird little quirks and things that kids do.
The bread has skin.
And it's so hard to rationalize it, but it's like, does every little crazy thing that a little kid does have like this simplistic of a reason behind it? And we just don't know how to ask the right way?
Maybe.
What if, you know?
I mean,
that's wisdom. You don't like the skin. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that kid had a good answer. Mom or dad was probably just like, "I got nothing."
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer.
So anyway, I read that. I knew that I would have to share it. Reddit has every once in a while, it tends to kind of be a cesspool, as most social media is, but every once in a while there's just some like truly golden and beautiful and perfect little nugget that comes through.
It was a very pure answer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the skin.
So I hope that you guys enjoyed that and got as much of a kick out of it as we did. This is a shorter episode tonight. Like I don't have anything else that I want to talk about. We broke the big news about the truck, and that's kind of it.
keeping on. I mean, we're pretty boring people for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do some things, but
we find
we have a lot of
happy.
We have a lot of opinions. So with all that being said, if you guys would like to hear our opinions on something, let us know.
That's true. We'll get real controversial for you. You might not like us afterwards, but we'll do it.
Yeah. Let us know, because we're always looking for something new to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
something to ramble.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If you are interested in keeping up with us outside of the podcast, you can follow us on Instagram. We have an account for the podcast called Maybe We're Just Rambling, and I always put up pictures after the show of anything behind the scenes. So if you want to see what the new truck looks like, or if you've never seen what our current vehicles look like, or whatever else that came up during the show that I decided to throw in there, you can go there for little behind the scenes things. And if you're inclined enough and curious enough, you can find our personal Instagram accounts through that as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening to this. We hope that you enjoyed it. We will definitely keep everybody posted on what happens with the new vehicle and all of the projects that we undertake. There's always something. We always have something going on in the background.
I don't know if you were like this before we got together, but man, I love to tinker, and I rubbed it off on you, I think.
You did bad. I don't think I was as big of a DIYer before we got together, but now it's like, man, I love a good project, even though it like kind of makes me want to kill somebody in the moment when I'm dealing with it.
Why are you looking at me?
Well, So anyway, you have anything else?
Nope.
All right, well, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Stuart.
This has been our ramble.